I know where my grandparents are from.
Considering how I've come from Jammu,
we don't have anything to do with white people, that I'm quite sure about.
I don't know, Pakistan.
Some say we descended from Greece, some say we are from Central Asia.
Possibly like the Aryan race.
Yes, I definitely want to know who my ancestors are. Which is that one monkey I can find? Grandpa monkey. Hi there. See, my book uses the metaphor of the pizza to explain the Indian population. The foundation or the base of the pizza is the ancestry of the first Indians who came to India around 65,000 years ago, the out of Africa migrants who then went on to populate the rest of the world. And the source, my book says, are the Harappans. The Harappan civilization created by a mixed population of first Indians and West Asian migrants who reached India around 9,000 years ago or a little earlier. The chiefs are the Arya who arrived in India between 2000 BCE and 1000 BCE, that's about 4,000 to 3,000 years ago, from Central Asian steppe region, areas today that would be known as Kazakhstan. They were more prominent in North India than in South India, but they did spread all across the continent in various proportions. The toppings are the other migrations that brought various other components of the Indian civilization, most of all the Austroasiatic language speakers. But it's the first four migrations that have essentially formed the bulk of the Indian population. Around 4,000 to 3,500 years ago, all the four major constituents of the Indian population are already in. And during this 2,000 years, genetics tells us there was significant mixing that happened between all population groups of the kind that was never seen before or never seen later. Genetics also says around 100 CE, this mixing more or less came to an end. And endogamy started, which is people marrying within their own groups, which is a distinguishing feature of the caste system. After people had already mixed, the caste system falls around the ankles of the Indian society. So the idea that a nation had to have one religion, one leader, one faith, one culture, etc., to be a nation, certain kind of nationalistic ideology which was popular in Europe in the 1930s, which is around the time when the right-wing ideology was taking shape in India as well, is a very outdated and old idea that needs to be discarded. We have created a common civilization, but it is multi-source. It comes from the history of multiple migrations that happened over large periods of time. To straitjacket into a single source with a singular history is a tragedy. It doesn't relate to the reality as has been revealed by science. The book actually talks about four migrations, not one. The first Indians, the out of Africa migrants who arrived 65,000 years ago, West Asians, then East Asians, then the Arya. But nobody has a problem with three of those migrations which are not sensitive. But there is great deal of political and other sensitivity about only one of those migrations. Why is that? When you ask that why is that, then you realize that it's based on two misconceptions. First misconception is that all of Indian civilization is unisource and it comes from Arya Vedic Sanskrit civilization, which is not true. The Harappan civilization, one of the most remarkable civilizations of the world, precedes the arrival of the Aryans, and that has left a very large mark on the Indian civilization. The second point is again based on a misconception. If you say that there are people who speak Indo-European languages who call themselves Arya, arrived in India around 2000 BCE or later, that doesn't mean that they brought the Vedas in a packed form and then we unpacked it. No. The Sanskrit that we know, the Vedas that we know, were composed mostly in India. For example, there are retroflex consonants. These are words like ta, na. Most Indo-European languages you will not find them. In the earlier Sanskrit you will find retroflex. Where does it come from? It comes from the fact that it was in contact with other pre-Vedic, pre-Aryan languages in the areas that it migrated to in the Indian subcontinent, because the retroflex consonants are a feature of many languages, many pre-Aryan languages in India, including Dravidian. The caste system fell into place only 2000 years later, around 100 CE. It has to be explained as a political development rather than a religious or a scriptural development. And if you say it has to be understood as a political development, then you need to know what happened around that time in terms of empires, politics, ideologies, what changed. But it is reasonable to say, I think, there was a conflict between two ideologies within the idea community. One which was more, to use current day terminology, liberal and had no problems with mixing with people or in the way language is used, and the other that was more conservative, again to use a modern terminology, and had strong views about mixing and wanted language to be used very conservatively. So I think in the context between these two different approaches to how a society ought to be organized, one of them prevailed around 100 CE. If you take a single village in India, the genetic difference within that village is 2 to 3 times higher than the genetic difference between North Europeans and South Europeans. So this is what caste system has done. It has increased because it has divided society. And if you want to see the original Tukde Tukde gang, you have to go back around 2000 years ago.